Dr. Sarah Chen pressed a palm against the cool metal bulkhead of the UHMS Moses Rest, watching the stars drift past through the medical bay's viewport. The hospital ship had been her home for 3 years now, and she'd grown to love the gentle hum of its engines, the soft blue lighting that helped patients heal, and the sense of purpose that filled every corridor. Another successful run, her colleague Dr. Martinez said, joining her at the window. 4 to 7 wounded evacuated from the Kepler Station conflict. Humans, Altarians, even 3 Keth'var prisoners of war. Sarah nodded, her eyes reflecting the distant starlight. The Moses Rest was one of 12 hospital ships in humanity's medical fleet, clearly marked with massive red crosses visible from thousands of kilometers away. These vessels operated under ancient Earth traditions and galactic treaties, providing aid to anyone who needed it, regardless of species or allegiance. The Keth'var prisoners were surprised we treated them, she said quietly. Their medic told me their own military leaves wounded behind if rescue seems too costly. Dr. Martinez frowned. Different cultures, different values. That's why these ships matter. We show the galaxy there's another way. On the bridge, Captain James Morrison reviewed their flight plan back to Earth. The Moses Rest carried minimal weapons, just enough to defend against pirates or debris. Its real protection came from international law and the basic decency that most species respected, even in wartime. Captain, Communications Officer Liu called out, we're receiving a transmission from a Keth'var fleet. They are requesting our manifest and destination. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Standard procedure. Send them our medical vessel identification codes and patient transport documentation. Make sure they understand we're carrying wounded from all sides. The response came back within minutes, cold and mechanical through the universal translator. Human vessel, alter course to coordinates we are transmitting. Prepare for inspection. So, Liu said, her voice tight with concern, those coordinates would take us directly into Rigel Nebula. That's contested space, and there's no reason for an inspection there. Morrison felt ice forming in his stomach. Send back our refusal. Remind them of our protected status under the Galactic Geneva Conventions. We're bound for Earth with critical patients. The Keth'var response was swift and final. Human vessel, comply or face consequences. In the medical bay, alarms began sounding. Sarah rushed between beds, checking on her patients. The 3 Keth'var prisoners looked confused and frightened, while the human and Altarian wounded asked what was happening. Just a routine inspection, she lied smoothly, but her hands trembled as she secured medical equipment. Captain Morrison's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. All hands, this is a captain. We are being unlawfully detained by a Keth'var fleet. We are transmitting our protected status and demanding safe passage. Remain calm and continue your duties. Through the viewport, Sarah watched as massive Keth'var warships emerge from the nebula's edge. Their angular, predatory design seemed to swallow the starlight, and she counted at least 8 vessels surrounding them. They can't be serious, Dr. Martinez whispered. Attacking a hospital ship would violate every law of civilized warfare. On the bridge, Morrison tried one last desperate transmission. Keth'var Fleet, this is Captain Morrison of the United Human Medical Ship Moses Rest. We are clearly marked as a non-combatant medical vessel carrying wounded from multiple species, including your own people. Any attack on this ship would constitute a war crime under galactic law. The silence stretched for long minutes. Then, the lead Keth'var ship spoke. Human arrogance ends today. Your species believes itself above the natural order. We will demonstrate the cost of your interference. Morrison's blood turned to ice water. All hands, brace for impact. Emergency protocols now. The first energy beam struck the Moses Rest amidships, tearing through the clearly marked red cross painted on the hull. Emergency power kicked in as the lights flickered, and the gentle hum Sarah loved so much became a grinding scream of damaged machinery. In the medical bay, patients cried out in fear and pain as their beds shook violently. Sarah threw herself over a wounded Altarian child, shielding the small being from falling debris. They are really doing it, Dr. Martinez said in disbelief. They are attacking a hospital ship. The second blast shattered the main medical bay's viewport. Sarah watched in horror as a vacuum of space began pulling equipment, supplies, and, God help them, patient toward the breach. Emergency bulkhead slammed shut, but not before she saw 3 beds disappear into the cold darkness. Captain Morrison's voice, strained but determined, filled the ship one last time. "This is Captain Morrison to any vessel receiving this transmission. The UHMS Mercy's Rest is under unprovoked attack by Keth'var forces. We are a clearly marked hospital ship carrying wounded from multiple species. Remember us." The final energy barrage struck the ship's reactor core. In that last moment, as white-hot light filled every corner of the Mercy's Rest, Sarah held the Altarian child close and thought about the message humanity would receive. The galaxy was about to learn something it had never truly understood about her species. Human forgave many things. They showed mercy to enemies, treated wounds without asking whose side someone fought for, and built hospitals in the darkness between stars. But there were lines that, once crossed, changed everything forever. The Mercy's Rest died in silence, taking 847 souls with it into the void. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the war room beneath Geneva, her weathered hands gripping the edge of a holographic display table as she watched the final transmission from a Mercy's Rest play for the 7th time. Around her, the highest-ranking military officers from every human nation sat in stunned silence. 847 people, she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of decades of military service. Medical personnel, patients, wounded prisoners of war. They killed them all. The recording showed the Keth'var fleet's systematic destruction of the hospital ship, each energy beam precisely targeted to cause maximum casualties. There had been no warning shots, no attempt to disable. This was execution, pure and simple. General Harrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, broke the silence. "The Galactic community is in shock. The Altarian Republic is demanding immediate action. Even the normally neutral Centauri Federation is calling this a crime against all sentient life." "And the other Keth'var fleets?" Admiral Stone asked. No response. No condemnation. No apology. No disciplinary action against the fleet commander. As far as we can tell, this was sanctioned at the highest levels of their government. Stone nodded slowly, her mind already shifting into the cold calculation mode that had made her Earth's most feared strategic commander. "They've made their choice. Now we make ours." She touched a control panel, and the holographic display shifted to show Earth's orbital shipyards. Hundreds of vessels floated in the darkness, dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, and ships whose classifications were known only to a select few. "How long to mobilize the 1st through 5th fleets?" she asked. 7 to 2 hours for full deployment, came the immediate response from Fleet Coordinator Jong. "But Admiral, that's nearly 2,000 ships. The Keth'var have maybe 400 vessels total." "I'm not interested in a fair fight, Coordinator. I'm interested in a lesson that will echo through galactic history for the next 1,000 years. Across the room, Captain Torres from Special Operations cleared his throat. "Admiral, what are our rules of engagement? The Keth'var have civilian populations, non-combatant vessels." Stone's eyes, steel gray and cold as a void between stars, fixed on him. "Our rules of engagement are simple. Captain, we will follow every law of civilized warfare. We will protect non-combatants. We will treat prisoners with dignity. We will offer medical aid to their wounded." She paused, letting the irony sink in. "And then we will systematically dismantle every military asset the Keth'var Confederation possesses until they surrender unconditionally or cease to exist as a spacefaring civilization." The room fell silent again. This wasn't the measured, defensive war humanity had been fighting for the past 2 years. This was something else entirely. "Admiral," General Harrison said carefully, "the galactic community might see this as excessive." "Let them." Stone's voice cut through the air like a blade. "The Keth'var cross a line that has existed since the first civilized beings looked up at the stars and decided that some things were sacred. They murdered doctors and patients under a flag of mercy that has protected the innocent for millennia." She gestured, and the display changed to show the Keth'var home system, 3 inhabited worlds, dozens of space stations, mining colonies, and military bases. Every hospital ship in our medical fleet carries civilians from multiple species, volunteers who risk their lives to save others. Yesterday, the galaxy lost 847 beings who dedicated their existence to healing. Today, they'll learn the cost of that choice. Fleet Coordinator John pulled up deployment schedules. The first fleet can reach Keth'var space in 6 days. The second and third fleets will follow at 12-hour intervals. But, Admiral, we've never deployed this much firepower at once. The logistics alone will be perfect, Stone interrupted. Because unlike our enemies, we don't leave our people behind. Every ship will be supplied, every crew will be supported, and every action will be documented for history. She walked around the table, studying the faces of her commanders. These were warriors who had spent their careers following rules, fighting with honor, showing restraint even when the enemy showed none. I know what I'm asking of you, she continued. I know some of you are wondering if this response is proportional. Let me be clear. Proportional responses are for disputes between civilized parties. The Keth'var have declared themselves outside civilization. The display shifted again, showing the wreckage field where the Mercer's Rest had died. Debris scattered across thousands of kilometers, including pieces of medical equipment and personal belongings that would never return home. Dr. Sarah Chen had served on hospital ships for 8 years, Stone said quietly. She'd saved over 3,000 lives, including Keth'var prisoners who now died alongside her. Captain Morrison turned down 3 promotions to stay with the medical fleet because he believed in its mission. Chief Nurse Williams was 2 months from retirement and had already trained her replacement. She looked around the room again. They were murdered for showing mercy. If we don't respond to this with overwhelming force, we tell every species in the galaxy that attacking the innocent carries no real consequences. General Harrison nodded slowly. What about the Keth'var civilians? Their colonies include families, children. Will be protected by the same rules they ignored, Stone replied. We'll give them every courtesy they denied our people. And when this is over, when their military is scattered debris floating in space, maybe they'll understand why those rules existed in the first place. The orders went out within the hour. Across human space, fleet bases erupted into activity as the largest military mobilization in Earth's history began. Commander Elena Vasquez floated in the zero-gravity briefing room of the dreadnought UES Retribution, watching her squadron leaders absorb the mission parameters. Around her, 20 of humanity's finest ship commanders studied tactical displays with the focused intensity of predators sizing up prey. The Keth'var Third Fleet is holding position at the Arcturus Junction, she explained, highlighting the strategic choke point on the holographic star map. 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and approximately 40 support vessels. Intelligence suggests they are preparing to reinforce their home system. Captain Singh of the destroyer UES Mumbai raised a hand. Commander, are we certain they know we're coming? They know Earth is mobilized, Vasquez replied. What they don't know is the scale. Long-range sensors show they are confident in their defensive positions. The Junction's asteroid field gives them excellent cover, and they've mined the main approach routes. She gestured, and the display zoomed in on the Junction's complex geometry. Massive asteroids created natural corridors that force attacking fleets into predictable patterns, while defensive platforms built into the larger rocks provided overlapping fields of fire. Classic defensive doctrine, observed Captain Chen of the heavy cruiser UES Shanghai. Channel the enemy into kill zones. Use superior positioning to offset numerical disadvantage. It's actually quite sound. It would be, Vasquez agreed, if we were playing by the old rules. The display shifted, showing the approaching human fleet. Instead of the expected single battle group, the Keth'var sensors would soon detect 6 to 7 vessels approaching in a formation that defied conventional tactics. We're not going to fight our way through the Junction, Vasquez announced. We're going to go around it, over it, under it, and through it simultaneously. Captain Torres of the fast attack ship UES Falcon looked puzzled. Commander, the asteroid field extends for 3 light minutes in every direction. Going around would take exactly 17 hours and 34 minutes at maximum burn, Vasquez finished, which is why half our fleet is already in position on the far side, having approached from the Galactic south. The Keth'var have been so focused on our main approach that they missed 30 ships moving through the Helix Nebula. The tactical display updated, showing human vessels emerging from the nebula's interference like ghosts materializing from fog. The ambush fleet included some of Earth's newest stealth destroyers and the experimental carrier UES Prometheus. The attack begins in 4 hours, Vasquez continued. The ambush fleet will strike their rear positions while we hit them head-on. But remember, our objective isn't to defeat them in glorious battle. Our objective is to destroy them so completely that every Keth'var commander in space understands what happens when you attack a hospital ship. In the Keth'var Command Center carved into the largest asteroid, Fleet Commander Tesmar studied his sensor displays with growing unease. The human fleet approaching the junction was larger than expected, but still manageable. What bothered him was their formation. They are approaching in a straight line, his tactical officer reported. No screening formations, no advanced scouts. It's almost like they want us to see them coming. Tesmar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Humans are not stupid. Their military doctrine emphasizes flexibility and misdirection. This feels wrong. Perhaps the destruction of their hospital ship affected their judgment, suggested his aide. Grief can cloud tactical thinking. Oh, Tesmar said quietly, they want us to think that. He was reaching for the communications panel when the first fusion missile struck his rear defensive line. The ambush fleet had approached through the nebula's electromagnetic interference, using gravitational slingshots around dense gas pockets to build velocity while remaining invisible to sensors. When they finally revealed themselves, they were already inside the Keth'var defensive perimeter. Contact rear. Multiple human vessels. Unknown number. The communications channel filled with panicked reports as defensive platforms vanished in brilliant flashes of nuclear fire. Tesmar spun to face his tactical display, watching in horror as 30 human ships carved through his carefully prepared positions like a plasma torch through ice. All units, pivot to face rear attack. Launch all fighters. But even as he gave the orders, the main human fleet suddenly accelerated, abandoning their straight-line approach for a complex weaving pattern that brought them through the asteroid field far faster than should have been possible. How are they navigating the field at that speed? His tactical officer demanded. Tesmar understood with the clarity of approaching doom. They've mapped it. Every asteroid, every gravitational anomaly, every safe passage. They've been planning this for months. The human ships moved through the dangerous asteroid field like they were dancing, each vessel following a precisely calculated course that brought them into optimal firing positions while avoiding the defensive platform's overlapping fields. Fleet Commander, his communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel." "Put it through." The voice that filled the command center was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its controlled fury. Keth'var Forces, this is Admiral Stone of the Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of galactic law regarding the protection of medical vessels. Surrender immediately and prepare to be taken into custody for war crimes. Tesmar activated his response channel. Human Admiral, we are prepared to negotiate. There are no negotiations. Stone's voice cut through his words like a blade. You murdered 847 innocent beings under a flag of mercy. The time for talking is over. The human fleet opened fire. What followed wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. The Keth'var had prepared for a fight between honorable enemies following established rules of engagement. Instead, they faced something that felt like a force of nature given military discipline. Human weapon systems fired with mathematical precision, each shot calculated to cause maximum psychological impact along with physical destruction. Ships didn't just explode. They came apart in spectacular cascades of fire that lit up the asteroid field like a deadly fireworks display. Tesmar watched his fleet die with professional detachment, even as he prepared his own ship's self-destruct sequence. The humans were sending a message, and that message required an audience. Send word to High Command. He ordered his communications officer. Tell them we have awakened something terrible. High Admiral Keth'ran stood on the observation deck of the orbital fortress above Keth'var Prime, watching the emergency session of the Confederation Council through a wall of armored transparency. Below him, the homeworld's 3 billion inhabitants went about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization balanced on the edge of extinction. "The Third Fleet is gone," reported General Morthak, his voice hollow with disbelief. "All vessels destroyed or scattered." Fleet Commander Tesmar's final transmission indicated the humans deployed at least 60 ships in a coordinated ambush. 60 ships to destroy 48 hours, Keth'ran mused. Expensive, but effective. High Admiral, interrupted Defense Minister Vextala. "Our intelligence suggests this is only the beginning. Long-range sensors are detecting massive human fleet movements throughout the sector. They are not just responding to our action at the junction, they are mobilizing everything." Keth'var turned from the window, his scale features reflecting the cold light of distant stars. For 40 years, he had served the Confederation military, rising through ranks built on the principle that strength was the only currency that mattered in the galaxy. The destruction of the human hospital ship had been a calculated demonstration of that philosophy. Now he was beginning to understand that humanity operated by entirely different calculations. "Show me the deployment patterns," he ordered. The tactical hologram that materialized in the center of the room was sobering. Human fleets were converging on Keth'var space from 7 different vectors, their numbers far exceeding anything the Confederation had imagined possible. 2,000 ships, General Morthax said quietly. "Maybe more. Our entire military consists of 400 vessels, and 30 of those are pure support craft." The humans maintained reserve fleets, Defense Minister Vextala added. "Ships and crews we didn't know existed. It's as if they've been preparing for a war of extermination." Keth'var studied the display, noting precision of the human approach routes. Every fleet was positioned to cut off escape routes, prevent reinforcement, and isolate Keth'var forces into manageable segments. This wasn't the angry response of a wounded enemy. This was surgical warfare planned by beings who understood destruction as both art and science. "What are our options?" he asked. "Surrender," said a new voice from the chamber's entrance. The council members turned to see Ambassador Drehan, the Confederation's senior diplomatic representative, enter with an emergency escort. Her normally pristine appearance was disheveled, her diplomatic robe stained with travel and urgency. "The Galactic community is in chaos," she announced. "The Altarian Republic has condemned our actions. The Centauri Federation is calling for our immediate expulsion from civilized space. Even our former allies in the Helix Compact are distancing themselves from our position." High Admiral Keth'var's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Political posturing. When the shooting starts, positions change." "No," Ambassador Drehan said firmly. "You don't understand. I've just come from the neutral zone negotiations. The humans aren't asking for galactic support. They are providing it. They've opened their medical facilities to treat Keth'var civilians who might be caught in the crossfire. They are broadcasting safe passage routes for non-combatant vessels. They are offering refugee status to any Keth'var who wishes to leave our space." She activated her personal communicator, projecting a recording of Admiral Stone's address to the galactic community. "The Earth Defense Force takes no pleasure in this action. We respect the Keth'var people and wish them no harm. Our quarrel is with those who ordered and carried out the destruction of the UHMS Mercy's Rest. We will accept the surrender of any Keth'var military personnel and guarantee their treatment according to galactic conventions." "They are making us look like monsters," General Morthax realized. "We are monsters," Ambassador Drehan replied. "We destroyed a hospital ship. We murdered doctors and patients. Whatever moral authority we once claimed died with the Mercy's Rest." High Admiral Keth'var felt something cold settling in his chest. In all his years of military service, he had never faced an enemy that combined overwhelming force with moral superiority. The humans weren't just planning to defeat the Confederation. They were planning to do it while maintaining the ethical high ground that the Keth'var had abandoned. "The humans are 3 days out from our outer colonies," Defense Minister Vextala reported. "Advanced scouts report they are not bombarding civilian targets. They are surgically removing military installations while leaving infrastructure intact." "Impossible," Keth'var said. "No force can be that precise on such a scale." "They are using medical scanners," Ambassador Drehan explained. "The same technology that guides their hospital ships. They can distinguish between military and civilian personnel from orbit, target weapons emplacements without damaging nearby schools or hospitals." The irony was suffocating. The humans were using their medical technology, the same systems that had been aboard the Mercy's Rest, to conduct the most precise military campaign in galactic history. "High Admiral," General Morthax said carefully, "we need to consider evacuation of our core worlds. If the humans maintain their current advance rate—" "No evacuation," Keth'var interrupted. "We make our stand here, at the homeworld. Every ship, every defense platform, every weapon we possess. That's suicide, Ambassador Drehan protested. You'll be sacrificing millions of lives. I'll be preserving Keth'var honor, he replied. If we're going to fall, we fall fighting. But even as he spoke the words, Keth'var wondered if honor meant anything when facing an enemy that had already proven itself more honorable than you could ever be. Outside, the first human scouts appeared at the edge of the home system, their sensor suites methodical and patient. They weren't rushing toward battle. They were documenting everything, preparing for final confrontation that would be witnessed by the entire galaxy. The message was clear. This was how civilized beings responded when barbarism threatened the innocent. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Determination, watching the final approach to Keth'var Prime unfold on the tactical displays around her. The battle for the Keth'var homeworld would begin in 18 hours, and every detail had been calculated with the precision of a surgical operation. Final fleet positions confirmed, reported Fleet Coordinator Jong. All vessels report ready status. Medical ships are standing by at safe distance with full trauma facilities. Stone nodded, her attention focused on the defensive formation surrounding the Keth'var homeworld. High Admiral Keth'var had pulled every remaining military asset into a desperate last stand: orbital fortresses, planetary defense platforms, mining stations converted to weapons platforms, and every surviving warship formed into concentric defensive shells around their capital world. Estimated enemy strength, she asked. 147 combat vessels, approximately 300 stationary defensive positions, came the immediate response from Intelligence Officer Park. They've mined the approach routes and positioned their heaviest units to protect civilian evacuation zones. Stone raised an eyebrow. Evacuation zones? Yes, Admiral. Long-range sensors show massive civilian transports departing the outer colonies. The Keth'var military is providing escort for non-combatants leaving the combat area. For the first time in days, Stone allowed herself a small smile. Even now, they're learning. The truth was that this final battle had become something neither side had originally intended. What began as human vengeance for a war crime had evolved into a demonstration of principle that the entire galaxy was watching. Every major species had observation ships positioned at safe distances, documenting how Earth's forces conducted warfare against an enemy that had abandoned civilized rules. Admiral, Communications Officer Liu announced, we're receiving a transmission from the Keth'var flagship. Put it through. High Admiral Keth'var's image appeared on the main screen, his scale features showing the strain of the past week. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship bustled with activity as his crew prepared for what they knew would likely be their final battle. Admiral Stone, he began, his voice carrying a dignity that hadn't been present in previous Keth'var communications. I wish to discuss terms. The terms remain unchanged, Stone replied. Unconditional surrender of all Keth'var military forces, extradition of those responsible for ordering the attack on the Mercer's Rest, and reparations to the families of those murdered. And in exchange, your people continue to exist as a spacefaring civilization. Your colonies remain self-governing under galactic oversight. Your civilians receive the same protections we will provide our own. Keth'var was quiet for a long moment, studying Stone's face across the light years between their ships. You could have bombarded our worlds from orbit. You could have ignored civilian casualties, as we did. Why haven't you? Stone leaned forward slightly. Because we're not you, High Admiral. The moment we abandoned our principles to fight this war would be the moment we became no better than those who destroyed the Mercer's Rest. Even though it would be easier, even though we deserve it. Especially then. The transmission went silent for several minutes while Keth'var conferred with his officers. When he returned to the screen, something had changed in his expression, a recognition of defeat, but also something that might have been respect. Admiral Stone, I cannot surrender. The Confederation Council has stripped me of that authority and ordered resistance to the last ship, but I can tell you that many of our captains disagree with that decision. I understand, Stone replied. The offer remains open until the first shot is fired. The battle began at 08470 Standard Time with a display of precision that will be studied in military academies for centuries. Instead of the overwhelming bombardment the Keth'var expected, human forces began with surgical strikes on communication networks and command structures. Each target was carefully chosen to minimize civilian casualties while systematically dismantling the Keth'var military's ability to coordinate resistance. "They are not trying to destroy us," observed Captain Vectal from his destroyer as he watched human missiles thread between civilian structures to hit purely military targets. "They are performing surgery." The realization spread through the Keth'var fleet as ship after ship found itself isolated, cut off from command authority, and facing human vessels that offered surrender terms instead of destruction. High Admiral Keth'var watched his carefully prepared defensive formations crumble not through brute force, but through the systematic removal of everything that made them effective. Human forces used non-lethal weapons when possible, disabled rather than destroyed, and immediately began rescue operations for Keth'var crew members from damaged vessels. "So," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are broadcasting medical assistance to our damaged ships. They are treating our wounded." It was a final proof of something Keth'var had begun to suspect. This wasn't really a war anymore. It was a lesson, delivered with overwhelming force but tempered by the same mercy that had been aboard the ship his people had destroyed. One by one, Keth'var ships began powering down their weapons and broadcasting surrender signals. Not because they were defeated, but because they finally understood what they were fighting against. When Keth'var's own flagship found itself surrounded by 7 human dreadnoughts, their weapons trained on his bridge but holding fire, he knew the war was truly over. "Admiral Stone," he said over an open channel, "the Keth'var Confederation surrenders unconditionally." The response came immediately: "Surrender accepted. Stand by for boarding parties and medical assistance for your wounded." As human forces secured the Keth'var homeworld with the same precision they had shown throughout the campaign, Admiral Stone stood once again at her viewport, watching the stars. The war was over, but its real victory wasn't military. For the first time in galactic history, a major conflict had been fought and won without abandoning the principles that made civilization worth defending. The message would echo through space for generations. Attacking the innocent would always carry consequences, but those consequences would be delivered by beings who never forgot what it meant to show mercy. The stars themselves seemed to approve, shining a little brighter in the darkness between worlds.